The main planets in astrology, astrologically, we have these 7 traditional planets, and it was in more recent times that the outer planets were discovered, and they include Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Astrologically, all 3, in one way or another, have to do with truth, but it's the kind of truth that takes you off one path and puts you on another. It is a karmic truth that the soul is ready for. And normally, when important activations of either of these 3 planets are occurring in the sky, important developments taking place, well, it does tend to suggest these turning point moments in a life, certainly over the course of a year. Uranus brings about its truth in a way that feels like a stadium full of light bulbs just went on, where you didn't even realize you were in the dark. Sudden and unapologetic, but also obvious. Pluto is more about the truth that comes about when you are in the dark night of the soul, dark spaces. It is there that we are invited to go deep within, to understand our real motivations and what's going on within us. And in that truth, change things right at their core from the inside out. Neptune, the other outer planet, isn't normally associated with truth because it is a planet that was discovered right around the time that photography and then film was starting, and it became associated with Hollywood. This whole idea of smoke and mirrors and glamour and presentation and the way in which illusions are created and presented. However, when Neptune goes retrograde, as is the case now, it is always a difficult, uncomfortable type of truth that comes forward. It is the truth of where it is that perhaps we've been lying to ourselves, where we bought into a fantasy, maybe even a hoax, where it is that we got caught up in some illusion, so that now that the illusion is falling away, well, it feels difficult. It feels like we're uncomfortable. We don't know where we stand. We don't know what it is that we can rely on. But that's where true karmic blessings can begin. Because it is only in accepting where it is that perhaps we've given way too much to a fantasy, to a hope, to a wish, that we then are able to more honestly evaluate, well, why is it that we're wishing for those things? Why is it that we found something that ultimately was glamour and smoke and mirrors and fantasy and hopes and wishes? Why was it so appealing to us? What is it about our lived reality that perhaps needs an infusion of spirit so that we can find that right balance? Imagination is a great gift of humanity. So much of the world that we've manifested together is as a result of imagination. But what happens when it gets carried too far? Well, each of us in our own unique ways is about to find out now with Neptune going retrograde. Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of June 29, 2025. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. You have hours left to choose your tuition rate over at synchronicityuniversity.com. Classes are starting this week with reality TV medium Mark McGowan, with me teaching you about timing, beauty, and these incredible speakers as part of a brand new speaker series as low as just $5 a class over at synchronicityuniversity.com. Links below. We can think a lot about what's going to happen, what we're going to move towards, what it is that we can do, what it is that might come about. And that is a very powerful way to use astrology. But there are also times when the energies start to shift. They start to take us inward. And this is actually really important because it invites us to get honest with ourselves, to look at how it is we might be using one of these sacred planetary energies of which we are an embodiment of. We are a manifestation of these sacred energies. Well, we get a chance to look at how we're using them, how we're bringing them forward, and whether or not it's working for us. And that's a big theme with this month, really, as we begin a brand new month. As we start the month, well, it's only Pluto that's retrograde, but by the time we end the month, 3 more planets are going to join the mix, which means we're going to have 4 planets retrograde before the month is out. And those retrogrades, well, they kick into gear now. One of the reasons is on Friday, we are going to have Neptune going retro. Now, whenever it is that a planet is changing directions, it appears first to stand still in the sky. And when a planet is appearing to stand still, it is closer to the Earth than it might otherwise be. And that represents a sense of it being heightened in its power, heightened in importance, and a sense that we are that much more connected, that much more aware of its energies at play. With Neptune representing the god of the seas. Now, Neptune is one of these sacred energies that was acknowledged whenever it was that someone took a journey at sea, but is also one of those energies that, like the sea, brings with it a sense of tides being able to come in, but they can go out as well. And just like the mystery of going on a voyage on the sea, there was always this sense that you don't really know where you're going. You don't really know how far that sea might take you, because especially to the ancient mind, looking out into the sea, there wasn't anything beyond the ocean that they saw. And so there was this sense of needing to trust a divine power, a divine energy, but still not being sure that what it is that was sent out would actually come back. And it's that way with Neptune. Yeah, the tides come in, the tides go out, but it's not always the same tide. And sometimes what goes out, it is not for it to return. But at the same time, sometimes what it is that comes in could feel like a dream come true. And other times what comes in, well, it just might be that, just illusions and fantasies, and not actually rooted in something that is going to manifest into something real. But that's part of what makes being a human being so inspiring, is that we can take a dream and we can make it real, or we can magnify a dream to make a life that much more magical. Now, what is your relationship to the magic itself, the miracles itself that the energy of Neptune represents? That's a big part of what we'll be exploring that much more deeply with a week like this. With Neptune standing still, going retro, I have always found this to bring with it a moment that is uncomfortable. And that discomfort comes about because there's some way in which we have not allowed ourselves to see the truth, accept the truth, but now it's like the truth is undeniable. We don't really have a choice. And as far away as we've gone on the fantasy is how uncomfortable it is going to be to realize that the fantasy is just that, and to have to now more honestly evaluate where we are and where it is that we might be going. But there's another way that at times a Neptune retrograde can show up for us. You know, Neptune can also represent this sense of being rescued. This sense of magic is also an energy of being swept up out of our current circumstances and being led somewhere that's a lot more idealistic, a lot more perfect, where life feels much more harmonious, much more at ease. But the truth is, if there is no struggle, there is no growth. And yet it is while we're struggling, while we're going through growth, that we actually need to believe in magic, in healing, in miracles. They all kind of go part and parcel. They go together as part of our evolution forward towards greater wisdom and greater love as well. If it's going to be a wisdom that's real, if it's going to be a love that's real, well, it has to be better rooted in an understanding of not just the harsh truth, but also how it is that faith can help us to navigate it. And in this way, Neptune also represents faith. But there's faith that's real, and there's faith that is a spiritual bypass. It's the type of thing where we tell ourselves everything is love and light, everything is beautiful, everything is perfect. And if you think it isn't, if you acknowledge anywhere in your life that it isn't, well, then you are taking yourself on a road that's entirely about you and your responsibility, and every bad thing that happens is absolutely your responsibility, rather than seeing how it is that the challenges that happen, they actually help us to be better versions of ourselves if we intend it to be so and if we allow it. Neptune going retro, the discomfort is in where it is that perhaps our faith isn't real. You know, I like to say something that actually a spiritual mentor of mine going way back, like 25 years now, lovely person. And I remember he used to say, when faith is healthy, it questions itself. When faith is healthy, it wanes. And since I heard those words, they really stayed in my heart. And since then, I've observed what happens in the world when people don't question their faith. Because when people don't question their faith, it's like a storm. It's like the water. It can be destructive. We think of water as healing, as cleansing, as having a flow and a softness and an ease. But we also know that water is one element of nature, and nature at times can be violent. Water represents emotions in astrology and other esoteric principles and practices. And as such, our emotions as well. They sometimes need effort to tame, to direct in a way that's constructive to us. Where it is that faith is never questioned, it becomes destructive. It becomes a force of us losing contact with what is real. But also it becomes a force of losing contact with what we really feel, the depth of it, the nuance of it, but also the sadness of it. So often we will tap into faith so that we can feel a sense of some power in times that we might feel powerless. And faith is a source of power. But when it is that we allow that faith to take us to illusions of grandeur, to take us to spaces and places within ourselves of hyper entitlement. And in the case of Neptune now in the sign of Aries, hyper independence, well, we lose something about what it is to be human in that case. And what we lose is, on the one hand, connection to others, because we are ultimately social creatures. We need each other as part of our thriving and as part of our growth as well. But we lose touch with ourselves, with our sadness, with our emotions, with our love, because you can't have one without the other. It all comes together, all the feels of being a human being and all the promise of it, all the beauty of it. Well, it's sometimes messy. And when we lie to ourselves, when we tell ourselves it isn't that way, well, that's when we may not realize that we're actually creating more pain for ourselves and for others. And so, where are you in that spectrum of realization? Where are you in terms of your spectrum of understanding of your faith? Is it waning? Is it questioning in a healthy way or an unhealthy way? Has it been way too carried away with itself to the point where it brings you to this moment of discomfort and really disconnection with the self? Discomfort really is key when it is that Neptune is going retro. It is about having to understand or embrace, or at least have to wrestle with, wrangle oneself with that contrast between the hope, the promise, the wish, the fantasy, and the reality that's right in front of you right now. And the reality is that people are complex. People can sometimes be not very nice to each other, and people can sometimes forget that they are on a journey towards greater love. When we lose that, we lose our humanity. And that's a whole lot to lose. But it's not just about Neptune this week, because on the same day, on Friday, we are also going to have Uranus meeting Venus in the sky. And this is taking place at the very end of the sign of Taurus. It is going to be the same day that Venus changes signs, moving into the sign of Gemini. And it is going to be next week, early next week, that we are going to have the very exciting event of Uranus changing signs, dipping into the sign of Gemini until November, at which time we'll have Uranus retrograde back into Taurus. And then in the brand new year is when we're going to have Uranus move on with greater intent and a greater sense of forward momentum once we get into 2026. So I'll be here to talk about it every step of the way. Super excited to talk about it next week with you as well. But here's the thing. This week, right now, Uranus is going to meet Venus in the sky under the light of, on the same day of, practically simultaneously as Neptune going retro. And I find this fascinating. All of the planetary movements, they have an intimate dance. Even if it doesn't seem connected to each other, there is this divine way in which the higher tapestry is in constant movement, constantly at play, and constantly connected as well. And so I find it rather fascinating that the uncomfortableness of the truth of Neptune going retro, along with the floodlights, a whole stadium full of floodlights in some cases, coming on all of a sudden. And it involves Venus. So whenever it is that Venus meets Uranus in the sky, it is considered the most shocking day in love of the year, or the most surprising day in love of the year. This is an annual meeting that tends to take place. And so when it takes place, yeah, we look at love differently in an instant. Now that could be romantic love, very possibly, especially considering that this is happening in the sign of Taurus. This is where Venus is at home in the sign of Taurus. This is also the very end of its sign, so it's sort of wrapping things up. And this is where the ancients believed the 29th degree of any given sign was a degree of culmination. Sometimes, I have to say, crisis. Sometimes it has to do with what feels very concentrated, very immediate, very urgent as well. And so, yes, it might feel as if we need an answer in love. We need some truth in love. We need to know what's really going on with love, with another person, with where we are in love, why we feel the way we do in love. And wanting that answer might feel very imperative to some of us right now. But Venus isn't just about romantic love. It represents a few different things. Self-love, absolutely one part of it. Where is it that we need to be more adamantly and unapologetically in love with ourselves? We need to show ourselves some kindness, show ourselves some deeper truth. I'm reminded of so many years ago, right? I kind of grew up watching the Oprah Winfrey Show, right? And her work kind of comes in there in my interpretation sometimes. And I remember this one time she was telling a story of how she was on the ground and she was begging this guy not to go. She was saying, please don't go. And then she heard a voice in her head that said, get up off the ground. What are you doing? And that was actually an important turning point for her, really for the rest of her life in relationships. That moment became this turning point because that was a moment when she realized that she has to hold herself in her own love, that matters, that it is from that place, that romantic love with anybody else, well, that's when it's going to even matter. That's when it even is worthy of her When she's aware of the love that she is, she'll know herself to be worthy of love. Now, that is, part of my interpretation there. She told the story of telling herself to get up, and I think that that's phenomenal. And I would say many people have some shade of that type of experience, especially as a young person, where you have that turning point, where you realize, well, no, wait a second. This is not what love is supposed to be. This is not what it is to be in a space of sweetness and light with another person. This feels off. And when we have that feeling, or when we have that clarity, sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's very clear, very obvious, very pronounced. Either way, it is valuable because it leads us to ourselves. And that's part of the gift of Venus meeting Uranus in the sky. It gets us honest about where we might stand with another person, how we really feel about another person, how we really feel about ourselves as well. But for some people, it might also be oriented around getting us honest around money, around how we feel about prosperity, how we feel about abundance. This is happening in the sign of Taurus, after all, as well. And so we may notice as a collective sort of a light bulb moment as to what's really going on with the economy, for example. But it's also about what brings us pleasure, what helps us to feel more embodied, more present with ourselves, what helps us to enjoy the physical incarnation. Well, that too might turn on its head, where at one time something that felt so pleasurable, so rewarding, something we indulged in just isn't doing it for us anymore. And that might be the turning point, to realize why we liked what we liked, why we enjoyed what we enjoyed, and why it is now that we've grown beyond that. We've become something more. And in that way, actually, it is this evolutionary leap that is possible for some of us out there. Now, if you know your chart, if you are a student of astrology, I will say if you have any planets at the very end of just about any sign, then this conjunction is going to speak to you that much more personally because it's activating your chart in important ways. But even if you aren't a student of astrology, you'll be able to feel this, understand this, because it's just that powerful. It's just that concentrated, whether it is personal realization or whether it is outward events. Now, going back to love, let me just say romantic surprises do not go as planned. Let me say that. It is not the time to be planning a romantic surprise. It is a time to be open to see where it is the universe might take you and might take your heart, and to see and to embrace that as a sense of curiosity and a sense of adventure, and how it is that that might actually expand your heart. And in some cases, our hearts might expand in an instant more than we thought that they could, in understanding what love is for us more expansively than before. Now, speaking of retrogrades, Mercury. It's not Mercury retrograde just yet, but we are going to embark on a Mercury retrograde season this week. It had to come around. You know, it comes around 3, sometimes 4 times a year. So now here we are. And as we begin the week, Mercury is not yet in shadow, but Mercury is sort of bringing in the energy of late last week. Late last week, we had Mercury move into the sign of Leo and very quickly move to speak in supreme harmony with Saturn and Neptune at the very end of last week. So we're carrying that energy in this week. And what happens right out of the gate as we start this week? Mercury stands across the sky from Pluto. And I think that just Mercury standing across Pluto could be rather intense, could be rather difficult. But the fact that we are still within orb of that super harmonious Neptune Saturnian energy at play, I think that helps downplay some of the more intense vibes of Pluto opposite Mercury, because just having the opposition, look, any opposition of Pluto represents power struggles, sometimes power games, and sometimes feeling as if circumstances, and in particular, other people, and in particular, perhaps one other person is not being fair with us, maybe being mean to us, and worse. And that can be really difficult. But the thing is that with Mercury involved, it represents how someone might be speaking to us. But even then, because of those trines, there are ways in which even that might empower us. Sometimes immediately, sometimes as part of the larger picture. But Tuesday is when Mercury goes into shadow. And I think whatever energy it is just before the Mercury retrograde season begins on Tuesday, that energy we're coming into this week with, that opposition, it's almost like this Mercury retrograde season is going to help us to make sense of what that was, why it worked out the way that it did. I will give you an example of my own life. I remember way back in the day, I had a boss. She was awful. Let me just say, she was not good. I mean, I think about her sometimes and I say, okay, now that I'm a boss, like whatever she would do, let me do the absolute opposite of that, like inside and out. I can have a lot of compassion for her now looking back because I know she was going through Pluto opposite her sun. She hadn't really accepted or really worked through the loss of her father. So all of these layers were there. Okay, but she wasn't nice. And she wasn't nice to me. And the way that she spoke to me sometimes, I remember when I left that job and I said to myself, I will never be in a position where someone can speak to me that way ever again. Because it was so abusive. It was just downright, not just toxic, it was abusive. And it was wrong. Years later, when I finished university and I was like, okay, I'm going to do something. I'm going to make myself be an astrologer. I'm going to make an impact with astrology. I want to inspire people. And I didn't know how I was going to go about doing it. And I remember trying a lot of different things in the early years of my astrology business. And as part of that, there were moments that were really hard. And I've shared sometimes, you know, especially in light of the fact that I have a business class coming up at Kepler College that I teach once a year, every summer with them, you know, and I share that the first 7 years of my business, I lived below the poverty line in Canada. And once it started taking off, I mean, it really grew into something that I feel helps people. And I'm grateful that you being here means that you see it as part of your sacred journey. And I'm so grateful for that. But in those early years, when there was struggle, when there was fear, when there was striving, there was trying, there was fighting even as well, that was when I would have moments when I would hear that person's voice in my head. I would remember that boss. I would remember how she spoke to me. And it would motivate me to work that much harder because in my mind, I would say to myself, this has to work because that alternative, no, that did not work for me and it is not going to work for me. And I dedicated that much more of myself into my work. And so I've been a full-time astrologer now for almost 19 years, actually, coming up really soon. It's going to be 19 years and that's super exciting. And I'm grateful that all the sacrifices I made, I remember having these big turning point moments years ago where I realized it really was worth it. And a little bit of a side note here, I will say as well, I had a big turning point moment when I came to Mexico. I'm in Mexico City right now, and I always come back to Mexico. I've been coming here for years, but the first time I came here in 2012, and I realized that life doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be striving. That balance is what I needed. Again, I talk about that a lot in my Kepler class coming up really soon. I'll talk about that later as well, and I will link to it below. Having said that, yeah, Mercury opposite Pluto. Feeling like someone speaks to you in a way that isn't right, that isn't fair, that you're not okay with, might be part of this for some of us out there, but it's almost like it might be needed in a way, as part of the mystery. As unfair as it might be, it helps us to understand what's working for us and what isn't. What's worth aligning with, who's worth having in our lives, what we're worth working towards, what we have within us that knows that we deserve better. That is the value of those difficult moments, when we realize we deserve more and we deserve better, not from a place of entitlement or ego, but from a place of healthy self-value and healthy self-love. So Mercury goes into shadow on Tuesday. And normally we like to focus on the actual retrograde. A lot of people do just think about the retrograde, but it really isn't just about the retrograde. What it is, it's about a path. It's about a journey that we go on in our own unique ways. And Mercury, stepping into shadow, begins to walk a path that, once Mercury goes retrograde on the 18th of July, Mercury will start walking backwards over this path. Mercury will go direct August 11th of this year. And when Mercury goes direct, that is when Mercury will be where Mercury is right now. And so in the middle of August, we just might see very differently what it is that's happening right now. Because right now it's more about an idea, an inclination, a possibility. The retrograde invites us to get more honest with ourselves, to go to deeper levels, but it also invites us to look at where it is perhaps we're trying to make something happen that just isn't or isn't meant to right now. Whether that's within ourselves, in our own growth, or practically in our own lives. But once Mercury goes direct, that really is when a clarity can come. Retrogrades help us to get honest, but it isn't just in the retrograde itself that we get honest, but rather it is after the retrograde, with the direct, that we start to find honesty. We almost have to go to a place where we're very caught up in something or someone or some circumstance in order to then, with Mercury direct, realize what was really going on, what that was really about, and where now we want to make different choices. We want to do things differently. And when we enter a Mercury retrograde season, it tends to represent a time where you're going to have Mercury dance with other power players for a total of 3 meetings. That's what happens. There are 3 connections that take place. Sometimes when Mercury is stationary, it might hold a conversation. But the key planets, the key placements that Mercury is going to dance with as part of this Mercury retrograde season is going to be Ceres, the asteroid, and Venus. Now, Ceres has to do with care, nurturance, what we really care about, what nurtures us inside and out, and how it is that we might cultivate that and give that to ourselves. And of course, Venus is love, how it is we might cultivate a deeper love for ourselves and for others. Mercury retrograde season is taking place in the sign of Leo. And Leo represents our heart, our capacity to love, our capacity to be generous, to give, and what authentic confidence looks like for us. Ego sometimes, of course, is healthy and not healthy. The not healthy version is what we normally think of when we talk about ego, right? This idea of self-importance, a lack of humility, which ultimately is a mask for a deep insecurity. But healthy ego is what gets us up when we wake up. Healthy ego is what says, you know, you're worth taking care of yourself enough to bathe today, to do something for yourself that you know is good for you, including on a level of your mental health, for example. Healthy ego says that there's something within you that is worthy of shining and being seen. And that if you share from that honest, authentic place within yourself, well, it'll be evident, that shine, that light, it'll draw towards you all good things. And so there are ways in which to balance any given energy. And Mercury retrograde season in Leo is about that. Being braggadocious for its own sake as performance is the mask. But knowing that there are authentic ways in which you can say that you know you are worthy, both are a part of the expression of Leo energy. Now, where do you stand with that? What's your relationship to that? Intellectualizing it and then having it reach heart, bringing it to emotion, to heart, being in love with that authentic expression, but also knowing that the expression itself is a form of self-care is going to be part of the larger themes of this Mercury retrograde season that we're embarking on now. What I love about this week for us, there's so much here. It is a powerful and meaningful astrological moment. Well, I am going to say there's just so much going on here. There's such a larger theme of truth, a deep truth, a profound truth, the performance of truth, a disillusioning truth, but truth nonetheless. And I think that that's when life really is that much more meaningful, when we're able to be honest about our experience of it, all the shades, all the ways in which we experience joy and elation and happiness, but also uncertainty, disappointment as well. It is all sacred. It is all reflected in the sky, in the planets. And those planets, well, we are an expression of them, a divine expression of them. It is the sacred that shines forward through us that is able to be magnified around the earth that much more. And so now here we are. And we get a chance to really look at the truth of our hearts, but also look at the truth of our hopes as well. I like to say delays are not denials. I know that's something that lots and lots of people have said for a long centuries, millennia, in fact, but especially where it comes to the movement of the planets, when you have this mix of energies that are extreme and shocking and surprising, but also in some cases disillusioning, grounding in ways that might feel uncomfortable but necessary. Well, all of that can feel like a real mixed bag, and yet it's all leading us somewhere good. The truth, yes, universally perhaps, but certainly the truth of ourselves, and that is always good. Well, thank you so much for watching. What do you love about this week? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading you guys, and to prove it to you, here's some of my most recent favorite comments. Thank you to everybody who likes, who comments, who subscribes, who shares, who thumbs up. All of it means so much. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. And of course, if you want to know how all this wonderful stuff this week speaks to you in your sign, log on to NadiyaShahSuperstars.com, where you get expanded exclusive video scopes for each sign for as low as just $3 a month with choose your membership rate. Higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com, links below. Before I jump in with the incredible classes that are coming up, taught by me and others, I'm super excited to talk to you about that. I do want to send out an apology and a burst of gratitude. Just thank you, everybody. So many wonderful comments and messages about Synchronicity University turning 10 years old. I was so emotional, and I'm so grateful that there was this safe space here where I could share that with you, and it would be so welcome. Thank you for that. I apologize for the fact that there are delays. There's delays right now with the Jupiter special horoscopes, and it looks very possible that the monthly horoscopes as well might be delayed. Superstars always get 24 hours early access to that. So especially to them as well, there might be a delay. So I apologize all around in that. I don't like to give negative things a lot of energy or speak to them so much. And my hope is that when I spoke about, even when I get emotional, speaking about Synchronicity University last week, and I was speaking about the late, great Donna Van Toen, I got really emotional with that. But to me, that isn't a negative thing. To me, that is a beautiful thing. And I love speaking her name and just reminding people of our late great legends in astrology. And for me personally, to remember how blessed I have been by them, it just fills me with gratitude. So to me, that's more of an expression of love. But yeah, I don't need to go into the details why there are delays. I apologize so deeply. And I'm so grateful that there are so many people who have such enthusiasm and passion for what I share through astrology. So thank you with all my heart. I will do my due diligent best. And I look forward to continuing to share astrology with you. Synchronicity University is proud to present the launch of incredible programs starting this week. Yes, July programs. And as we start this week, you literally have just a couple days, if not just hours left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class, an unheard of rate for these caliber of astrologer. And we at Synchronicity University, we have done a lot to keep it at $5 a class. And it really is because of your support, signing up for classes, that you make it possible for us to have all these amazing teachers. So actually, I'm going to start with Mark McGowan, reality TV medium star. And, you know, he's just so brilliant. And I have benefited personally from his wisdom, his insights about the world, about intuition, and so much more. And I love that this time at Synchronicity University, he's teaching a 5-week course all about uncovering, discovering, magnifying your intuitive gifts and how it is that spirit speaks through you and how to magnify that voice that much more. So whether it is mediumship, psychic power, clairvoyance, or other ways in which you might bring your intuitive gifts forward and magnify them, this course is going to help you to understand all of that and more. And so learn from Mark McGowan. This is the only place where at Synchronicity University you'll be able to learn from him at that low a rate. And when you sign up for his class, well, you're able to ensure that so many more classes are able to thrive and survive that much more. And so check out Mark McGowan. You can learn a lot more, see the course breakdown, class by class breakdown over at synchronicityuniversity.com, links below. Synchronicity University is proud to present me. Yes, I am coming to my school and I am teaching a very highly requested class called Glitz, Glam, Astrology. And this is about timing beauty. So it is one of those things that if you are an astrologer or for yourself, it is a common practice to guide people when they say to you, hey, I want to get a new tattoo. Hey, I want to try a new hair color, or more, right? More permanent procedures as well. I know I am often asked about the best day, the best time, what they should look for, what larger trends they might want to observe, and more. And so that's what this class is going to teach you, those very techniques that I draw on to guide clients, to guide family members, and also for myself as well. And that's the thing with this class, is we are going to go through a celebration of your unique beauty. And I'm very much of the belief that you get to decide what your unique beauty is, and you get to decide how you're going to bring it forward. And what matters is that you are beautiful for you. That's it. It's not about external judgments or any kind of standard that you have to meet. Absolutely not. It's about you. And so that's where we start. We're going to start by exploring your Venus sign, which says something about your style, says something about how you express your unique beauty, what that means for you. And understanding Venus actually becomes really important later on in the later weeks of the class. The second class looks at the ascendant, aspects to the ascendant. It's your appearance, how you feel about it. And this also is going to be really important as well, where it comes to the following class and beyond, where we're actually looking at techniques to time treatments, to time, whatever it is that you do to celebrate your unique beauty, and especially the kind of stuff that you want to last, you want really good outcomes, or you know that you're not going to partake in very often, it's not necessarily routine. That's when you really want to make sure that the sky supports whatever endeavor you're pursuing. And so the third class borrows techniques of medical astrology to look at the moon sign, look at what the moon is doing and what that tells us about what types of activities might be best. The following class looks at aspects to the moon and understanding the different planetary energies, how they contribute to how the energy of the moon might manifest in regards to whatever your stated intention is. And then the final class looks at bigger transits to your natal chart. That's what we're looking at here. Now, I might make some adjustments as we go along because I've been thinking about adding additional layers. So if that's the case, I'll just expand on the classes that are already there. I'll add to them. But it is this class that takes you through techniques that I've been utilizing for years with clients, with family, and more. Celebrating style, magnifying your unique beauty as you identify it and as you want to do it. That's what this class is all about. You can learn a whole lot more. You can sign up over at synchronicityuniversity.com. You've got a little time left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class. Literally, as we're starting the week, there's like 2 days left, which might actually be just hours left by the time you're watching this, to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class at synchronicityuniversity.com. Links below. Synchronicity University is proud to present an absolutely incredible July speaker series over at synchronicityuniversity.com. And as we start this week, you've got a little time left to choose your tuition rate, mere hours perhaps to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class to learn from these incredible speakers that you see here. I'm going to start with Eva Marie Javier. She is stepping in sort of last minute, but it's been incredible getting to know her. I'll publish her interview right around the time that this publishes. And she's going to be teaching on Uranus and Gemini. Very hot topic right about now, right? But it's about black sheep signatures, identifying them in the chart. Uranus tends to play a really important role in that, and she's going to help explore that in the context of Uranus in Gemini. Giselle Guerrero is going to be teaching on Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, Lilith in Scorpio, how that helps us to understand Black Moon Lilith that much more as well. And I'm always up for a really good discussion about Lilith, and I actually learned new things talking to her in the interview that we did together. You can find that on my channel as well to see what insights she brings and so much more to this class. Annabelle Quintero is going to help us to understand the wisdom of the Ghetto tradition that comes from the indigenous people of the Sacred Valley, and how that connects to understanding moon phases, how you relate to moon phases, and what this very special indigenous wisdom has to say. She's going to shine a light on that and bring so much heart into the mix as well. Stacey Murphy, home manifestation, home astrology is what she looks at, and how to set up your home by understanding your chart, your fourth house and your moon, and how you can align your home with that, but then also keep in mind what it is you're wanting to manifest and how you might want to make adjustments so that you can do just that. So she's very proactive, and she's very much about you manifesting a life that you love, and your home being the foundation to help you to do that. And Jenny Seek will bring an understanding of alchemical psychology. I loved talking to her. I've been interacting with her online for years, and she just brings so much passion and understanding to the history of alchemy and how that applies to our psychological understanding and the whole process of psychology as well as a practice in alchemy. It is fascinating to consider. We touched on it in the interview that I did with her, but she's going to help us to make it that much more practical in her talk. So you can see here, incredible speakers coming up at Synchronicity University this July, And as this week begins, you've got a little time left to choose your tuition rate, as well as just $5 a class, hours left to learn from these incredible astrologers at synchronicityuniversity.com, links below. Post and prosper, social media for the astrologer or spiritually inclined entrepreneur is what I will teach over at Kepler College. And as this week begins, you've got a few days left to take advantage of early bird pricing. And they also have the option, I think it's just the early bird option, to divide payments up into two, so you can take advantage of that as well. Now, this class is the only business class I teach once a year. Kepler is a renowned institute, and it is this class that always fills up. It always sells out, and I'm so grateful for that. I love being a part of the celebration, the success of future astrologers online. Already astrologers, but people sharing astrology more adamantly. And we really go through all these different aspects of the business side of what it is to be an online astrologer utilizing social media. Now, you don't have to be an astrologer for this. We've had all kinds of people, healers, yoga practitioners, artists who've joined this course and this class in the past years. And really, it's just a small part of the first class that focuses in on astrology. And that's about choosing the best date. It's electional astrology. But for the most part, we're really, really practical with this. The tools that you need, feedback into how it is that you are on camera, what your strengths are, if you even want to be on camera, the different ways in which and different platforms in which you might post and cultivate community. And also the business side includes all the ways in which to generate prosperity for yourself so that you can provide for yourself and to those to whom you are responsible. Mentorship is a big part of this experience. Because of the small class size, I'm able to give that personal attention, and I'm available to you throughout this journey and this process for you, as much or as little as you like. So you reach out, you ask my opinion for things you're posting in the dedicated student forum. You'll get that much more feedback from me, and I'd love to be a part of that journey. I always learn a lot about myself in the process, but I really, really love watching people shine and come forward and learn new things about themselves and to share, and to see so many people go on to have incredible presences online on different platforms is so rewarding for me as well. So you can learn a lot more about the course. You can sign up, and if you sign up early in the week, you'll be able to take advantage of the early bird pricing and divide your payments as well. That course will start in the middle of July. So there's still a couple weeks left to sign up, and yet the class always sells out. There's always a flurry of signups towards the end. That's how it tends to be. But if you are so inspired, it would be wonderful to have you join. Over at Kepler College, make sure to use the link in the description below. Astrology, consciousness, and the great shift, a very special weekend to take place this October at the Omega Institute. And we've got absolutely incredible astrologers who are part of this journey, and you can see them here. But I will say that the Omega Institute is very near and dear to my heart. It is a place that I went to 20 years ago, and the experience I had there for that retreat weekend, it was life-changing and nothing less. And I would invite you to look into this program and to join us if you are so inspired as part of this incredible journey as well. And so you can see here, we've got huge, big dogs joining us. We've got Maurice Fernandez, a leading evolutionary astrologer. Lynn Bell, who I absolutely love, the author of several books. We've got Anne Ortili. She is someone who's made such a presence of herself online, inspiring people with her astrology. As has Hannah Tenuwara. I love her astrology, and she's really starting to make more and more of an impact in astrology as well. So there's this whole focus on shifting of consciousness, but also there's a goddess emphasis as well. This really is Maurice's program, and I'm so honored and grateful that he invited me to join. And like I said, something about this space, this place, it was life-changing to me 20 years ago. I'm super excited to be there again and to see where it is and how it is that spirit moves us towards more meaningful change as well. So join us, learn more, sign up at the link below. And thank you. Thank you so much for this moment with you. Thank you for your trust. Stay tuned for short horoscopes coming up right now. So grateful for you guys, and it'll be a great week. Enjoy. The main planets in astrology, astrologically, we have these 7 traditional planets, and it was in more recent times that the outer planets were discovered, and they include Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Astrologically, all 3 in one way or another have to do with truth, but it's the kind of truth that takes you off one path and puts you on another. It is a karmic truth that the soul is ready for. And normally, when important activations of either of these 3 planets are occurring in the sky, important developments taking place, well, it does tend to suggest these turning point moments in a life, certainly over the course of a year. Uranus brings about its truth in a way that feels like a stadium full of light bulbs just went on, where you didn't even realize you were in the dark. Sudden and unapologetic, but also obvious. Pluto is more about the truth that comes about when you are in the dark night of the soul, dark spaces. It is there that we are invited to go deep within, to understand our real motivations and what's going on within us. And in that truth, change things right at their core from the inside out. Neptune, the other outer planet, isn't normally associated with truth because it is a planet that was discovered right around the time that photography and then film was starting, and it became associated with Hollywood. This whole idea of smoke and mirrors and glamour and presentation and the way in which illusions are created and presented. However, when Neptune goes retrograde, as is the case now, it is always a difficult, uncomfortable type of truth that comes forward. It is the truth of where it is that perhaps we've been lying to ourselves, where we bought into a fantasy, maybe even a hoax, where it is that we got caught up in some illusion, so that now that the illusion is falling away, well, it feels difficult. It feels like we're uncomfortable. We don't know where we stand. We don't know what it is that we can rely on. But that's where true karmic blessings can begin. Because it is only in accepting where it is that perhaps we've given way too much to a fantasy, to a hope, to a wish, that we then are able to more honestly evaluate, well, why is it that we're wishing for those things? Why is it that we found something that ultimately was glamour and smoke and mirrors and fantasy and hopes and wishes? Why was it so appealing to us? What is it about our lived reality that perhaps needs an infusion of spirit so that we can find that right balance? Imagination is a great gift of humanity. So much of the world that we've manifested together is as a result of imagination. But what happens when it gets carried too far? Well, each of us in our own unique ways is about to find out now with Neptune going retrograde. Now, how Neptune going retro will speak to you in your sign depends on your sun, moon, and rising. Take all 3 into consideration. Synthesize the information to make it unique to you. And there are lots more horoscopes up right now over on my YouTube channel, Nadiya_Shah, and in the superstar space at thefutureismagical.com. Aries, Neptune going retro in your sign. This is a phenomenon that hasn't happened in about a century and a half. So it's likely the very first time in your lifetime that you are experiencing this. And it is a moment of facing illusions, delusions, and having to really be honest with yourself about who you are and how far away that might be from some conceptualization of who you are. It's identity in some way being cleansed, but also needing a shot of honesty that finds you at this time. Emotions might run really high, so make sure you're taking the best of care of you now. Taurus, with Neptune going retro in the sign just before yours, a part of the sky that has to do with soul, psyche, spirit, and the unconscious part of you, well, it just might feel like you don't really know what's going on. Your intuition might feel really strong, but there might be fear in trusting it as well. And that really is okay. This is part of a sacred journey that's going to take 14 years in the making, and you're just at the very beginning learning how to access this energy. Make sure you're getting enough rest. So much can work out in the dream space at a time like this. Your dreams might be especially lucid, filled with symbolism that can help create a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious now. Gemini, group endeavors and friendships. Where is it that your expectations are reasonable and where have they not been? But also, where is it that the expectations of others placed on you have been healthy, good for you, reasonable or not? All of that is going to be explored, especially with the turning of Neptune. It does give you a chance to get really honest about how you feel about certain people, how strong you feel certain friendships are, and whether or not you feel that certain people or groups are worth giving to and investing in. There might be disappointment, but there's also a deeper layer of truth within that helps you to understand who really is for you. Cancer, career, social standing, life purpose, and your understanding of a higher, more loving vision for your life. It just might feel elusive at a time like this. It could be that there's some career disappointment, but a more likely scenario is a feeling of disconnect to meaning of what it is that you're hoping to achieve. Or there might be a sense that there's something you really got to get done and you're pouring so much of yourself into it that you're tiring yourself out. So pace yourself as you navigate this time. Your goals are expanding. It just might not feel like that at first as you first face what it is that might no longer be a fit for you. And that really is okay. Leo, understanding your place in the world, long distance travel, immigration, citizenship, and higher learning. Now, this is an energy that can suggest uncertainty or disappointment. And if you're involved in a legal matter or you're a student in an institute of higher learning, that's not necessarily easy energy to accept or take in or to roll with. And yet, it is at this time that it might feel these matters sort of have a will of their own. Just about any journey now might feel like a spiritual pilgrimage of one kind or another. You're also looking more deeply at the values that guide your life, that help you to make sense of the world, and you're being encouraged to find deeper nuance and compassion to them. Virgo, truth, change, transformation, regeneration, and wealth. So practically speaking, yeah, there might be little mix-ups related to your credit card statements and things like that. So you just want to make sure that you're paying attention to what's happening in terms of your finances in a larger sense, particularly where it comes to dealing with financial institutions. But outside of that, this energy might be deeply personal and meaningful to you, but it really is about identifying what it is that's got to change, what it is your deeper truth is, and where it is that perhaps, especially psychologically or just about any transformative process, needs a dose of faith to be that much more effective. Well, you're cultivating that faith now, that any steps you take towards meaningful change, well, they will add up for something in the fullness of time. Libra, partnerships of all kinds, including love, and where it is perhaps you've had reasonable expectations, where they haven't been reasonable, all of that is going to stir at this time. Either this energy is going to bring disappointment in another person, or it's going to bring with it a need to be really honest with yourself about where it is perhaps you facilitated some disappointment within a particular connection. So pace yourself as you navigate this time. More is yet to be revealed, but certain disappointments, they're worth acknowledging. Where you genuinely feel like someone could have been more fair with you. I think you're about to look at it, accept it, and where connections are strong, where they're meant to last, there'll be that honest exchange to help the two of you move forward. Scorpio, your daily life, clients, customers, coworkers, immediate supervisors, as well as what you do to take the best of care of you. Now, you want to be mindful with these people. Misunderstandings become very possible here, and disappointments as well. Certain promises maybe not able to be kept. In some rare situations, it might feel like one of these people isn't being straightforward with you or honest with you, and that it might be intentional. So just know that there is this sense of uncertainty around these key alliances, but it might also play out in terms of what you're actually doing day in and day out, including with your work. You might end up giving a whole lot of time to a particular project only to have your efforts just wash away. Now, where it comes to your health, make sure you're getting a lot of rest at this time. It's possible that something kind of mysterious pops up, but it also just might resolve itself just as quickly as well. Sagittarius, romance, flirtation, what's fun for you? What brings you happiness? It might be as if the answer is elusive to that question. You do want to be mindful about getting way too carried, way too far where it is you're having fun, especially if you're inclined towards escapist tendencies like drinking. For all that though, a flirtation might either feel like a dream come true, restore your faith, or it might feel just downright disappointing. And someone that you had your eye on, or maybe a budding romance taking place there, well, yeah, if it's meant to go forward, it will. But if it isn't, it'll reveal itself to be the case as well. Capricorn, home, the past, your living situation, and your family of origin. There might have been a real attempt to change something about your living situation. The best efforts might wash away now. But if you are making changes, just know that what you think it is, it's almost like there's so much confusion and you don't even realize it. So just be mindful of that. For all that though, this energy can be very powerful for bringing genuine forgiveness to your past. Now, whether it is a need to forgive another or to forgive yourself, it is about a shift of energy that happens that allows you to move forward towards something that feels a lot more grounding in spiritual truth. Aquarius, communication, conversation, siblings, cousins, neighbors. So with communication, the likelihood of misunderstandings of all kinds of communications, the likelihood of you understanding something else based on what someone has said to you, or someone understanding you differently than you intended, well, these are some possible scenarios that can transpire. So it's a good idea not to have really important conversations under this sky. But for all that, there's also very powerful energy that speaks volumes to your relationships with the types of people I just mentioned. Either there's going to be profound healing and honesty, or maybe one of these people might disappoint you. It might be something of no consequence, but it also might be intentional. So just pace yourself as you navigate this time and give others the benefit of the doubt. Pisces, money you earn, money you spend, self-love, self-esteem. So where it comes to the self-love part, really asking yourself deeper questions and actively doing the work that seeing yourself with eyes of love from a spiritual perspective sometimes requires. But where it comes to money, I would be very careful about things like get rich quick schemes or anything that has to do with changing your source of income, especially major changes. You don't want to make that this week in particular. For all that though, I would also be mindful of spending, because sometimes this energy can represent almost like a waste, a lot going out, and it may be for something that ends up just being a dream or an illusion at that. And so stay mindful that the true prosperity is within. That's what you bring, that's what you have. Thank you for watching. It'll be a great week. Enjoy.